Today we're going to be talking about the regulatory elements of cosmetics. Specifically, we'll be focusing on the United States as a part of the regulatory requirements in terms of MoCRA. We'll be addressing MoCRA in a little bit of a depth, but also we'll be talking about consumer-driven trends, things such as vegan cosmetics and V-label and what SGS has to offer in that area. My name is Karayan, and I'm the Global Head of Cosmetics and Pharma at SGS. And SGS, for those of you who don't know about the company enough, is the global leader in certification, testing, and inspection. In fact, today SGS counts over 97,000 employees all over the world, distributed on 2,650 offices and labs all over the globe. We service 7 different industries in the world, and that is significant. What we are proud of is that we contribute locally. It's a global operation with local contribution, with local service. And of course, we were able to reach that global leadership through sustainability, through innovation, through quality, and we continue to innovate and work according to the best standards for sustainability and quality across the world. As far as cosmetics go, we offer end-to-end services in the value chain, in the cosmetic value chain. As you can see here, we've got raw material, product formulation as being a part, as at the early stage of value chain, all the way through production, packaging, logistics and distribution, as well as retail. So all of this stuff is actually things that cosmetics industry requires at different stages of production. From raw material aspect, as you can see here, there's a variety of audits, GMP audits, supplier audits, quality audits, certification audits for different standards, production as well as testing, obviously. So in terms of production and packaging, we offer 22716 for production specifically, and we've got also some regulatory audits, which we will be talking about in a while, as well as hygiene audits and international standard certification audits, as well as SMETA and ESG, and almost every audit scheme that's out there, we are able to help our clients with. In terms of logistics and distribution, and that's also another aspect of the cosmetics industry, as important as the other components of the value chain, we offer certification again in 9001, in supply chain security, in warehouse audits, and also in terms of inspections. Also, there is a big operation going on to ensure inspection, to ensure quality and safety of products during the logistic and distribution process. As far as retail goes, obviously we are supporting the retail industry, cosmetics retailers as well. For cosmetics retailers, obviously what's important is to make sure that the product that they have in store is sustainable, that it's of quality, that the products are really up to the standards that they should be meeting according to the retailer requirements. So all of that is stuff that SGS helps you with. A quick look at the global supply chain and what are the drivers today for cosmetics, for compliance in cosmetics. It's really about regulatory compliance, but not only regulatory, because there is also the consumer expectations part of it, which plays a big role in the way the industry is shaping up, as we will be seeing in a little bit later. So there's quality, there's safety, there's sustainability requirements, but also there's consistency and product efficacy. And those are all areas that are important for the consumers, but also for regulators. So as far as the overall value chain that we've talked about, the way those drivers impact the value chain components is that there are certain expectations for the industry to meet, for those players to meet. GMP audits, good manufacturing practices, but not only that. because if there are labs out there that need to be certified as well. So that's where the good laboratory practices come into place, GVP requirements, which is good pharmacovigilance requirements, and so on. But also quality assurance, regulatory compliance, sustainability, a huge topic nowadays, and it has always been in the cosmetics sector. Social responsibility, transparency, and fraud prevention, also equally important topics for the industry. So, all in all, those are some of the elements that are shaping up the industry as we start heading to the future, and SGS is there through its auditing, testing, certification, and training services to support you. Let's have a quick look at the regulatory landscape today. So, the industry itself has mostly adopted, and in a lot of regulations, they have either adopted or referenced the international standard ISO 22716, which is actually a guidance, international guidance by the International Organization for Standardization under ISO 22716, Good Manufacturing Practices for Cosmetics. And this specific reference, international reference, is standards. It's itself taken over some of the regulations in Europe, in Japan, and as well as in the Asian countries. Canada has endorsed 22716 as well as voluntary standard, and Brazil, in its own regulation, it has based its own regulation on 22716 with some additional requirements. The US, in 2013, before MoCRA, in 2013, FDA issued a guidance that incorporates 22716 as reference. So those are all regulators across the world, in addition to also the MENA area, Middle East and North Africa. We are seeing also more and more adoption of 22716 as the standard for quality, for safety, for efficacy. In addition to all of this, we are also seeing some new regulations coming up. For example, China has new requirements, regulatory requirements for cosmetics, and therefore there are some additional requirements. There are some commonalities with 22716, but there are some also differences. However, it was interesting to see some of the mapping that was done, and we've seen that there are a lot of common elements between the regulations, Chinese regulations, and 22716. So, what is the MoCRA? What is MoCRA? MoCRA is really the Modernization of Cosmetics Products Act of 2022 in the United States. It basically strengthens the cosmetics regulations, and it is one of the most important changes in the regulatory world of the United States since the 1930s for cosmetics. It significantly expands FDA's authority and to enforce MoCRA, but also it incorporates some new elements and new definitions and new requirements, obviously, and that's why we're talking about modernization of the cosmetics sector in the US. A few examples of those changes are definition of a cosmetic product, for instance. A cosmetic product in MoCRA is defined as a preparation of cosmetic ingredients. So a preparation of cosmetic ingredients with qualitatively and quantitatively set composition for use in a finished product. So we are looking at a combination of ingredients with the purpose of using it for a finished cosmetic product. Now, as far as the other definitions go, something new for the industry is also the facility, the concept of a facility. So what is a facility? FDA has defined a facility, a concept of a facility, as the entity of any establishment, okay, including an importer in some cases, that manufactures or processes cosmetic products for distribution in the United States. So this basically means MoCRA applies for companies or entities in the United States as well as outside the United States. For those facilities, in MoCRA, there's a requirement now for facility registration. So companies will have to register their facilities with the FDA. And that is a requirement that is already coming into effect very, very shortly. It is expected to happen by the end of this year. Responsible person is another definition. So a responsible person, the concept of a responsible person is that is the manufacturer, in some cases the packer, or in other cases is distributor of a cosmetic product whose name appears on the label. So in some cases that manufacturer will be the entity whose name is going to appear on the label. In some other cases it's going to be the distributor. So if you are exporting to the United States, you need to make sure that your distributor is also meeting those regulatory requirements. A responsible person, that is again the company or the entity whose name appears on the label, is responsible for, has certain accountabilities and responsibilities, which include product listing. So basically FDA expects now products, cosmetic products, to be listed and with their individual ingredients. But also mandatory reporting is a requirement for the responsible person. Mandatory reporting of serious adverse events or incidents, in which here we're talking about serious events that could lead to death, for example, of the consumers. So, and another responsibility for that entity, for the responsible person, is safety substantiation. And we get this a lot. We get a lot of questions about what is the individual, what are the requirements as far as testing go, pre-marketing testing and so on. So with MoCRA, that is a responsibility of the responsible person that we've been talking about. So with this in mind, let us look at some of the dates, some of the deadlines associated with MoCRA, compliance with MoCRA. And by the way, we'll be also answering some questions as they come along. So if you have any questions, please make sure that you ask, because there's a lot of details in all of this, and obviously we would not be able to cover everything within few minutes. But I'm sure you will have questions, and we'll be happy to answer them. So as far as the dates go, some of the dates are already coming into effect in early 2024. So by the end of 2023, we are expected to see the ones that are in. And by the way, this is a slide that was presented by FDA. So we are expecting, for example, adverse events reporting to start in early 2024. Good manufacturing practices is expected to be developed starting 2025. So that does not mean that companies need to do nothing until 2024, 2025. In fact, this is a perfect opportunity for companies to start preparing for that regulatory thing, because GMP in cosmetics is going to be GMP in cosmetics. It can't be about something else. So what we are encouraging our clients and companies in general to do is to start that compliance journey, is to start getting ready for that compliance with GMP regulations, specifically 22716. So we talked about some of those regulations and when they are due, but for the sake of cosmetics companies that need to know what's happening now and what is required now by the end of this year. So there's registration, facility registration, product listing that we talked about. Those are coming into effect this year. So be ready for it. Companies need to be sure that their product is registered. The FDA portal was not ready as of last week. So, but they are working on it, and we know that there's a portal being under development for registration and product listing purposes. Also in 2024, labeling for professional use is coming into effect, as well as mandatory recall authority of the FDA. And those are things that we'll start seeing by early 2024. They will already be in effect, and the others will be following that as well. So it's really an interesting journey, because if any of this happens the way the food modernization happened, we expect a lot of interesting traction in the market. We expect a lot of questions from the market, and obviously SGS is here to support you with those questions. Few questions that we've been receiving from our clients when we do webinars, when we talk to our clients and to the industry in general. One of the questions is, if we manufacture, fill and sell our own products, but we make less than $1 million in sales, are we exempt? Or should we still register our facility, and does MoCRA still apply to us? The answer, it depends, because In general, small entities are exempt. However, this exemption does not apply to cosmetics products that regularly come into contact with the mucous membrane of the eye and other high-risk products. So it's really risk-based decision and risk-based, expectations in terms of small enterprises. Another question that we get a lot is, if we manufacture cosmetic products for our private label customers, do we have to register our facility? So basically saying the customer's name is on the label. What we're saying is, and our answer is, registration is required for owners and for facilities that engage in production, and we said before, in manufacturing or processing of products, cosmetic products for distribution in the United States. But product listing, specifically, as we've talked about before, is the responsibility of the responsible person. That responsible person may be the company exporting its product into the United States, maybe the company making the product in the United States, but it may be a distributor. So that is why it's important to designate and understand the concept of facility versus responsible person. And the last question that we've incorporated here, and I know there's a lot of such questions, we are a contract manufacturer for many private label customers. How many times do we need to register with FDA? The answer is one. So even if a manufacturing facility is making products for multiple distributors, the requirement for facility registration is to have one registration done. So those are some of the questions that we've been getting, as I said before. So we're looking forward also to the discussion after this session, and I'm sure you would have more questions to ask. So we talked about GMP, and we said GMP is coming in 2024, 2025. So what is GMP and what is important? Is because according to FDA, it defines GMP, or good manufacturing practices, is the purpose is to prevent the delivery of cosmetic products that are adulterated or misbranded. So that is why it's important for FDA to incorporate the GMP and good manufacturing practices in its regulatory requirements. And there is also a similar definition with ISO. In general, though, they speak the same language. We're talking about quality, we're talking about efficacy of the product, and we'll see what 22716 does and what are the areas that are covered to address those requirements. A very important question to ask is, all right, so we are a cosmetic company. Are we a cosmetic company? Do our products qualify as being cosmetic products, or are we something else? Well, the answer is really, it depends on what you are manufacturing and the stated intended use. So what are you stating? Are there any claims you're making on the cosmetic product itself? And this is where we have a huge claims operation review and label review team that takes care of this part of the operation as well, to make sure that not only we are addressing your testing and certification needs, but we are really it's a hand-holding process from the beginning of the journey. So just to give you an idea of what the different categories of products could be. So we're talking about cosmetics, and those could be skin moisturizer, perfumes, and lipsticks, and so on. But there might also be some cosmeceuticals, which could be a combination of drugs and cosmetics. And this is where we're going to see some regulatory requirements that apply to cosmeceuticals that would be different from the cosmetics industry. Some would qualify as over-the-counter, OTC products, and some would really qualify as cosmetics, depending on which regulatory body would be addressing, would the product would fall under, and depending on where you want to sell that product eventually. So we talked about good manufacturing practices. We talked about the FDA and having incorporated 22716, and we talked about the other regulators as well, incorporating 22716 in their rules and laws. So what is 22716? ISO 22716 is really a guideline that was developed, as we said, by the International Organization for Standardization, and it's applicable to all production activities of cosmetic products dedicated to end users. So cosmetic products dedicated to end users, it's for manufacturing processes as well as semi-manufacturing processes. So everything that falls under those categories of activities could ISO 22716 would apply to them. We'll be covering very quickly right now the scope and what the clauses and of the ISO 22716 cover in terms of good manufacturing practices. So if you're a cosmetic, if you're in the cosmetic sector and you're thinking of going for a GMP certification, this would be the GMP certification you would be going for. All right. So basically, what it covers is the basic concept, but also some additional deeper concepts of good manufacturing practices, including personnel, premises, equipment, raw material production, finished products, quality control labs and how they should be independent from the other operations, out of spec products, how do we address that, how do we manage those, waste subcontracting and how do you manage subcontractors, and that's a very, very important notion in the cosmetic sector for contract manufacturing, in terms of contract manufacturing. Deviations, what do you do in case of deviations in the product or in processes? How do you handle complaints? How do you handle recalls? Who's responsible for what? How does the communication work within the company? Change control, a huge requirement. And this comes to us from all the way from the past, from pharma and other standards as well. You know, how do we handle change control? Change meaning operational changes or any other change within the company. Who notifies whom about that change and who is responsible for implementing that change and monitoring that change. So those are all covered in 22716. Internal audits, you're used to it already, probably with other standards, 9001, 14001, other ISO standards, they all cover internal audits, and also documentation. And of course, documentation in the past used to mean paper documentation, but not anymore. It could be paper, it could be paperless, it could be a combination. So it's really a case of making sure the document is traceable and it's accessible, and you know, confidentiality and everything is also in play. Certification for 22716 is valid for 3 years, and we do annual surveillance just to make sure that the system is ongoing and we monitor that system. Also, just 22716 gives you global recognition, but also the SGS certificate itself has a different global recognition, and obviously it gives you access to a lot of markets, you know, much easier and in a faster manner. So we talked about regulatory elements, we talked about regulatory requirements. Let's talk very briefly about vegan before taking your questions about vegan and vegetarian cosmetics. And this is obviously a trend in the industry. Some of you may be interested in it, some of you may be interested in why, and it could be an opportunity, as you will see in the next slides. So the vegan market is expected to grow, for cosmetics specifically, is expected to grow 6.3% annually to reach $21 billion by 2025. This is significant because 6.3 is today's projections, and we believe with the way the industry is shaping up, with the way consumer expectations are shaping up, this number could grow as well. And what are the drivers for that growth? Well, first and foremost is there's a change in perception, consumer perception. I'm not going to go into the sociological factors behind that change in perception. However, generational change is having its impact on the way vegan cosmetics is becoming more and more popular. Not only that, you got the social media influencers, you got the promotional campaigns that are being run about vegan cosmetics and vegetarian, and for good reasons. It's really about the industry trying to address those requirements in the most responsible way to make sure that those consumers looking for a lifestyle of vegan and vegetarian lifestyle have a choice. And that's exactly what companies are doing. So, because today we have more and more people and companies demanding greener beauty products, natural products, organic products, and those are all, you know, new trends or coming trends in the industry. In terms of market trend as well, as you could see here, demand for global popularity for cruelty-free and vegan beauty is growing. Vegan beauty growing even faster, as you can see here. And really the product lines that are most popular in those searches are skincare products. So for those of you who are interested to maybe start or think or, you know, have already started the process, just to know that today, the status today, and this could change very quickly because it's very fluid, right? So today, skincare really leads the vegan kind of popularity, you know, popularity across the world, and the others are catching up though. So we will be seeing more and more other products coming into play, and there might be some balance at some point, or there might not be. That's why I'm calling it fluid situation, because demand and perception could change. And this perception and demand for vegan products is not only impacting cosmetic sector, but also household sectors and toiletries. So all in all, it's an upward slope. It's an ongoing demand for those products. So in terms of the vegan certification that SGS offers, we are partnering with V-Label. So V-Label has been internationally recognized, and it has partners and network of 25 different countries. In fact, it's one of the best known brands, one of the best known licenses and vegetarian and vegan marks in the world. Today they have over 50,000 products and services with more than 4,300 license holders. So that's why it was important for SGS to partner with a global leader in order to be able to address our clients' requirements effectively. V-Label applies to cosmetic products. It applies for all the different kinds of categories of cosmetic products, but also for personal hygiene products, as well as home cleaning products and air fresheners as well. The criteria for V-Label, and they try to make it as solid as possible, is that we look at the production standards. We make sure there is no cross-contamination. We make sure that the company has taken all the necessary steps to prevent cross-contamination. And in this case, we're talking about cross-contamination between different vegan, vegetarian, non-vegan, non-vegetarian products. It's really making sure that there is no cross-contamination from one category to the other, because we want to make sure that, you know, a vegan product only has vegan ingredients in it. There's also some audits and lab controls in some cases. So we do the inspection and laboratory controls where needed according to risk assessment. Also, for V-labeling, we are looking at products that do not require GMO labeling. So basically, V-label is not a non-GMO standard, but at the same time, we do not allow GMO products to be a part of the V-label process. Animal testing is not allowed as well, as you can imagine. So also that is also a significant, important element in consumer expectations. And ingredients, obviously. Ingredients should be of vegan origin. So we look at all of these aspects before we issue a V-label certificate. So what are the advantages for companies? You know, going for V-label certification is really creating that awareness about whether you are thinking of having a national or international presence. You really want to put your names out there as being a vegan product, as having a vegan line. So let's give you some statistics for those of you interested in actually going into vegan product lines, or you already have maybe vegan product lines and you want to grow them and expand them. So over 55% of consumers think that cosmetic products and toiletries should include more vegan certified products. So your clients are expecting, you know, a wide variety of clients. Over 55% are expecting, you know, more and more vegan certified products. Over 75% of consumers think it is quite or very important that vegan cosmetics are certified by a third-party certification body. Why do you think that's the case? It's because that adds on that validation bit when there's a another set of eyes basically doing that verification and validation. And another statistic is over 55, almost 56% of consumers, they prefer the term vegan over cruelty, or cruelty-free. And that's probably because vegan incorporates cruelty-free, it incorporates, no animal testing requirements. Let's give you a quick look at what a vegan product, a cosmetic product should look like. If you're going in that direction, obviously there should be no products. Basically, we're talking about no products of animal origin. No products of animal origin, and here there's a difference between vegan and vegetarian. So vegan products should have no ingredients of animal origin, whereas vegetarian products would allow some ingredients of live animals, such as honey and milk, for example. So it's an important designation between the two, and those of you who are vegan or vegetarian do understand that, obviously. So we're looking at products, we're looking at ingredients, we're making sure there's no wax from animals, no fur, no royal jelly, and so on. So all those elements are looked at when we are doing that inspection, when we are doing that pre-audit, application review. So we talked about the audits a little bit, but basically an audit checklist or a full audit would cover the origin of the ingredients, the additives, the ancillaries, the steps to avoid cross-contamination. We talked about something similar to GMP here. It's not a GMP, but it's really, if you have GMP, you're already on your way to really making sure that you have processes in place to avoid cross-contamination. Animal testing, we'll look at that as well. Does the company incorporate any kind of ingredients that are subject to animal testing? And the presence of GMO. And as we said, there should be no GMOs in the product, or at least the presence of GMOs that need to be declared. So trace elements of GMO in some cases and so on would be looked at, and we verify those elements as well. An audit duration is typically half a day. It could be a little bit longer depending on the complexity of the organization, but typically it's half a day. It's an announced audit, and we basically look at all the elements that we have talked about. Renewal of the certification for V-Label is within 3 years max. This is the process for certification, and it starts with an application all the way to issuing a certificate. So in the process, there's review of the specifications, there's review of the ingredients, as we have talked about before. And here we summarize everything we talked about. So basically, why V-Label? We talked about transparency, we talked about trust, we talked about client expectations, but also it's important for you to know that for V-Label certification, with V-Label certification, you're getting a choice of also incorporating or combining different audits with a local provider of an SGS office with a global presence. So with that, we come to the end of this presentation. Thank you all for being here. We truly appreciate it. And I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. Yes, that is coming because in the last webinar that was conducted by FDA, we were told that that is still in progress. So as soon as it is done, we will make sure also through our documentation that is also known for the cosmetic sector. Okay? Sure.
Sorry. For the safety, product safety testing or substance demonstration, what kind of testing or report keeping they require?
Yeah, right now the testing process, the requirements for testing and so on are still being developed. This is new to a new area, new development, but we expect that certain testing requirements that have always been adopted will continue to do so. But right now, I don't know if you recall, we talked about PFAS, for example. That's one of the areas, and even for PFAS, the expectation is there's a study coming up from CDC, and the expectation is that study is going to contribute on the next step as to what is going to be required in terms of PFAS, and that's going to be an important element, and the same applies to other also areas of cosmetic products such as talc and so on. So it's still under development at this stage, I would say.
It's going to be available by the end of this year.
It's going to be available in principle by the end of, those two are going to be available by the end of 2025, I believe. So they are under development. I'm pretty sure the PFAS part is going to be by the end of 2025 because the CDC study, I think, is going to take its course, and they may or may not be related to each other. But I would think that is going to also have an impact on the way FDA regulates that part of the process for cosmetics. You're welcome. Any other questions? Yes.
Would you be able to get the V label logo for certain products within the blend, or it has to be most of like the whole blend?
Yeah, definitely. It can be certain brands, and at some point you can also expand that, certification to include also other brands. So yeah, it could be just certain brands, as long as we are able to verify that there is no cross-contamination from one brand to the other. So non-vegetarian, non-vegan to vegan product, as long as you're able to have those specific processes in place or manufacturing operations in place to ensure that there is no cross-contamination. That's what's really going to be important in this case. But yes, that's a typical way companies address V-label certification.
Can it be like certain products?
Yes.
Not one, like it doesn't have to be the whole blend.
Does not have to be the whole brand.
It's all just one product. It's fine. 1, 2, 3 products.
It's product groups. Yeah, it's product groups. That's what we're looking at. Yeah, you're welcome. Yes.
You touched on the allergen listing.
Yes.
When did you say that?
I wish I had. I wish I had an answer because we're always in touch with the regulators, and obviously those questions come up very, very often. But right now we do not have a timeline or a deadline that we could talk about. But I could assure you is it's under development, and everything is going to come up. Between 2024 and 2025, we'll have everything sorted out. But yeah, that's going to be one of the important ones. You're welcome. All right, there are no other questions. Thank you all for joining, and have a great day. Bye now.
Thank you.